By the way, Bezos, I read his article, which I thought was good. I don't know how much you can trust, the guy that owns the Washington Post.
Yeah.
He wrote the hard truth. Americans don't trust the news media. It's exactly what we've been talking about for a long, long time.
Welcome to the train. Hop aboard.
Well, the elitists, once again, Bezos tells Weibo to hire more conservatives. The paper loses 200,000 subscribers over endorsement debacle. So they came out and said, we're not endorsing anyone, which is an endorsement the other way, to be honest with you. That paper is hard left and, it's the New York Times type of thing. Jeff Bezos has now told the paper we need to add more conservative columnists in a bid to make the paper more balanced. We're just hire fucking journalists, man, who report stories and then let us judge for ourselves. I don't need conservative journalists any more than I need liberal journalists. You just need journalists. We're ups. We can figure this out ourselves. The paper cited its past position of more than 5 decades ago of not endorsing presidential nominees. We recognize that this will be read in a range of ways. That's inevitable. We don't see it that way. By the way, they're missing the bigger point. Literally nobody is swayed by these fucking things anymore. Your stupid editorial boards, who they're voting for, literally nobody cares. You do not have the exclusivity on the message that you enjoyed for decades. You had that, and you don't know how to adjust by not having that anymore. I don't know the level of stupid you would have to be like, any day now, the New York Times editorial board's going to let us know who to vote for.
Yeah.
Seriously? Who's doing that? How bloated does their ego have to be? 2 editorial board members quit over this decision. Quit.
Good. Fuck them.
I wonder if we'll get by. I'm resigning from the Post editorial board because the imperative to endorse Kamala Harris over Trump is about as morally clear as it gets. Worse, our silence is exactly what Trump wants for the media, for us to keep quiet. I hope we'll get by as a country without you, Ms. Roberts.
Yeah.
While leaving the board, I refuse to give up on the Post where I have spent 42 years, Hoffman wrote in a letter to Dave Shipley, the Post editorial page editor. I believe we face a real threat of autocracy in the candidacy of Donald Trump. I find it untenable and unconscionable that we have lost our voice at this perilous moment.
This is ridiculous. It's funny too,
sir.
Coming from somebody who works for an avid Kamala Harris supporter, I just don't care. Yeah. My boss is voting for who he's voting for. That's his choice. Yeah,
good for him.
He wants to get more taxes, and that's his call.
So Jeff Bezos wrote this article. I like a lot of it. Whether it's true, whether he believes it, I don't know. In the annual public surveys about trust and reputation, journalists and the media have regularly fallen near the very bottom, often just above Congress. But in this year's Gallup poll, we have managed to fall below Congress. Our profession is now the least trusted of all. Something we are doing is clearly not working. Let me give an analogy. Voting machines must meet two requirements. They must count the vote accurately, and people must believe they count the vote accurately. The second requirement is distinct from and just as important as the first. Likewise with newspapers, we must be accurate and we must be believed to be accurate. It's a bitter pill to swallow, but we are failing on the second requirement. Most people believe the media is biased. Anyone who doesn't see this is paying scant attention to reality, and those who fight reality lose. Reality is an undefeated champion. It would be easy to blame others for our long and continuing fall in credibility and therefore decline in impact. But a victim mentality will not help. Complaining is not a strategy. We must work harder to control what we can control to increase our credibility. Presidential endorsements do nothing to tip the scales of an election. No undecided voters in Pennsylvania are going to say, I'm going with newspaper A's endorsement. That's the point. Yeah. Seems silly to even think. Like, how big a bloated fucking ego do you have to think that? That, oh yeah, they're just waiting on me to announce. And the only reason that would be compelling is if you did something that we didn't already know you were going to say.
Exactly.
If the Washington Post or the New York Times editorial board came out and said we're voting for Trump, that'd would be a story. That would be newsworthy. The fact is, for decades, you all vote the same way every election, and then you shame anybody who doesn't see it your way. So yeah. What presidential endorsements actually do is create a perception of bias or perception of non-independence. Ending them is a principled decision, and it's the right one. Declining to endorse presidential candidates is not enough to move us very far up the trust scale, but it's a meaningful step in the right direction. I wish we had made the change earlier than we did, in a moment further from the election and the emotions around it. That was inadequate planning and not some intentional strategy. No quid pro quo of any kind is at work here. Neither campaign nor candidate was consulted or informed at any level or in any way about this decision. It was made entirely internally. Dave Limp, the chief executive of one of my companies, Blue Origin, met with former President Trump on the day of our announcement. I sighed when I found out because I knew it would provide ammunition to those who would like to frame this as anything other than a principled decision. But the fact is, I didn't know about the meeting beforehand. Even Limp didn't know about it in advance. The meeting was scheduled quickly that morning. There is no connection between it and our decision. And any suggestion otherwise is false. When it comes to the appearance of conflict, I am not an ideal owner of the Post. Every day, somewhere, some Amazon exec or Blue Origin exec or someone from the other philanthropies and companies I own or invest in is meeting with government officials. I once wrote that the Post is a complexifier for me. It is, but it turns out I'm also a complexifier for the Post. You can see my wealth and business interests as a bulwark against intimidation, or you can see them as a web of conflicting interests. Only my own principles can tip the balance from one to the other. I assure you my views are, in fact, principled. I don't believe that, really, but but at least he recognizes that you're going to see it one way or the other. I don't believe that. I think COVID showed too many people's hands. We get to see too many people's hands with big pharma and all that stuff. And the Washington Post was as guilty as anybody.
See, what Bezos has to do is join the Harris campaign to be the alternate to Trump's Rocket Man. Now Harris has a Rocket Man.
Yeah.
Company. They all need a little billionaire Rocket Man by him.
Dude, the Silicon Valley TV show addressed this. You know, I mean, talking about what a joke it is that these billionaires, like, oh, now we're all doing this. We all have to own a yacht. Now we all need hundreds of foot yacht. Now we're all in rockets.
All the politicians. Now we need a billionaire on our side.
Yeah, we need a billionaire too. Yeah. It continues. Our brethren newspapers have the same issue, and it's a problem not only for media, but also for the nation. Many people are turning to off-the-cuff podcasts, inaccurate social media posts, and other unverified news sources, which can quickly spread misinformation and deepen divisions. The Washington Post and the New York Times win prizes, but increasingly we talk only to a certain elite. More and more we talk to ourselves. It wasn't always this way. In the 90s, we achieved 80% household penetration in the DC metro area. While I do not and will not push my personal interests, I will also not allow this paper to stay on autopilot and fade into irrelevance, overtaken by unresearched podcasts, and social media barbs, not without a fight. It's too important. The stakes are too high. Now more than ever, the world needs a credible, trusted, independent voice, blah, blah, blah. He goes on. The problem is, sir, you guys got all of it wrong when it came to COVID. You got all of it wrong when it came to Joe Rogan batted 1,000 on COVID. He batted 1,000. One guy in a fucking room with one other researcher there got it right. All of it. Tell me where Joe Rogan fucked up on COVID. I'll wait. Tell me where we fucked up on COVID right here in a bedroom. How did we get it right? And all of you at the Washington Post and the New York Times ate shit day after day after day. How is that possible? How is it possible that with all your resources, you got it wrong? How is it possible that we got Russiagate right. Not partially right. We got it right across the board, and you failed. How is it that Jimmy Dore got Russiagate 100% right? And TDC Podcast got it right, and Joe Rogan got it right. How did we all get it 100% right about Hunter Biden's laptop? And yet, I can't figure it out. The Washington Post and the New York Times ate shit over and over. They still eat shit. And you know what, Jeff Bezos? Never once. It should be the headline in your paper. Here's where our trust failed you as Americans the most. We were all wrong. And it didn't, I don't have a problem with you being wrong on something. It's the fact that it seemed malicious. It was too easy to see where you were full of shit, where you were falling short, where you were shaming everybody, where you wanted to fucking mandate shit to your fellow American citizens. You failed miserably, and nobody, not any of the broadcast media, not any of you elitist newspapers around the country with your fucking stacked editorial boards ever once said, hey man, we fucked this up. We lied to you. We wronged you, and it's going to take decades, if not longer, to regain any level of trust from you. That's the facts. We can start from here on out. We give you our word. We will do proper reporting. We won't drop the ball on something like COVID again. We won't drop the ball and play to the interests of the elites and the powerful, and leave the voiceless hanging and shame the voiceless. We won't punch down any further. We will do a proper job. Our own fucking job, our only job, is to hold the elites to account. That's your job. Don't let the powerful run roughshod over the little guy. That's where you failed, Jeff Bezos. That's where the Washington Post has failed. The New York Times has failed. And right now, you're dealing with people that try and are capable of making mistakes, but are trying to look out for the little guy, something you have failed to do.
Yeah.
It's what you failed to do, period. And so that's why Joe Rogan wins. It's why Jimmy Dore wins. It's why we get it right here and you get it wrong with all your resources. Shame on all of them. Shame on all of them. And that's what we're feeling. That's what we're seeing. And so this article sounds great in words, but you can tell by the board members storming off, throwing a little tantrum. This is the most consequential election ever. Yeah, it is, but not for the reasons you think it is. Not for the reasons you think it is.